Hello, I'm going to tell you another story from the Bible. This is from the Old Testament. It's the last one from the Old Testament that we're going to tell. And it's the story of Joshua and how he fought an amazing battle, but he did it by sticking to God's battle plan. Joshua had led the people of Israel into the promised land. Do you remember Moses? He took them to the very edge of the promised land, but God didn't let Moses go in. No, he died. Moses died. He was very, very old. And it was Joshua who was asked by God to take the people of Israel into their promised land that he'd got ready for them. There were some very wicked people living in the land, and they knew they had to fight their way in. God did a great miracle. They went to the river Jordan and they crossed the river, but they crossed it in the same way they crossed the sea. God piled up the water either side of a dry path, and all the Israelite people, led by Joshua, went through the river on dry land and into the promised land. And they camped at a place called Gilgal. Now nearby, well, not too far away, was a huge city, and they knew they had to conquer the city in order to live in the land. And the city was called Jericho. Joshua must have been wondering, how am I going to conquer this great city? It will be a fearful battle. But then an amazing thing happened, because God sent an angel of the Lord to speak to Joshua. Joshua, he said. And Joshua, seeing this angel of the Lord before him, fell flat on his face, almost in awe and reverence. The angel said, "Stand up, Joshua, listen, hear what I'm going to say. God has sent me, and he sent me to tell you the battle plan for Jericho." I guess Joshua was pretty pleased that God had a battle plan at that stage, but he was amazed when he heard what it was. "What am I to do?" said Joshua. The angel said, "You are to take some of your mighty fighting men and stand them at the front of a procession, and behind them you are to ask 7 of your priests to stand, holding in their hands ram's horn trumpets, and behind them you are to carry the golden ark of God's covenant." And that was an amazing kind of box which was made of solid gold, and it had angels with wings covering over it, and it kind of symbolized to the people of Israel the presence of God. So it was like taking the presence of God with them. Oh, and behind that came some more fighting men. Joshua said, "Will they need all their armour?" They can wear their armour, but they won't be called on to fight." "What?" said Joshua. "Then what are they to do?" "You are to form into a procession," said the angel of the Lord, "and you are to walk round the great walled city of Jericho, all the way round, and then go back to your camp." "Is that all?" "Well, not quite," said the angel. "As you walk round, the priests are to blow the ram's horn trumpets all the way round, and they're not to stop. Keep on blowing until they get back to the camp." "Oh, right," said Joshua. "Well, if that's what God says, that's what we're going to do." The angel said, "You don't just do it once. You are to do that same thing for 6 days, all the way round and back to the camp. You are not to speak. The men are not to speak. They're to be totally silent. The only sound that will be heard is the sound of the ram's horn trumpet as you walk round." Now I need to tell you this. The walls of the city of Jericho were incredible. They were huge, they were very high, meters high, and about 3 meters thick. I mean, these were major walls. And the people of Jericho every night went back into their city and the gates clanged shut. And as soon as that happened, they knew they were safe. Those city walls were impenetrable. That means nobody could get through those walls. Nobody was going to damage them. Well, for 6 days, Joshua did exactly as the angel said. But the angel had said, "Joshua, there is one thing more. On day 7, you are to walk round the walls yet again, blowing the trumpets in silence, but then at the end, you are to give a great shout, and everyone is to shout for the Lord God of Israel. And you will see the walls will come tumbling down." Joshua could hardly believe what he was hearing, but he obeyed. He did exactly what the angel said. And for 6 days they walked around those city walls, and the trumpets blew, and that was the only sound that could be heard. And I bet the people in Jericho looked over the walls and thought, what is going on? Why is this army not coming against us? Why are there so few fighting men? Why are there only 7 priests with trumpets? And what's that they're carrying? They must have wondered. The 7th day they saw them do it again, all the way round. And then, after the trumpet had blown, Joshua gave a great shout for the Lord God of Israel, and all the fighting men shouted the same. Praise be to the God of Israel, the Lord God of Israel. And they kept on shouting for God in praise and worship. And then there was a slight wobble in the ground. And then they heard a rock fall. And then another, and another, and another. And suddenly the great massive stones that created the wall of Jericho came thundering and rumbling down, and the walls fell before their very eyes. I can hardly believe this, but it's in the Bible. You've got to find out where. Remember, this is a where is it story. The walls fell down, and Joshua and his men went climbing over the rubble that used to be the walls, and they took the city. They took it for themselves. God performed a great miracle. He said, I can do anything if you trust me. God still says that today. He says, I can do anything with you if you trust me. I like the story of Joshua for that reason. I hope you can find it okay in the Bible. Anyway, I'm going to finish this with a little song. You can talk about your men of Gideon. You can talk about your men of Saul. But there's nobody like Joshua at the Battle of Jericho. Believe me, Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho. Jericho, Jericho. Joshua fought the Battle of Jericho, and the walls came tumbling down. Where is it? I bet you'll find it if you look. Bye.